Maria Alejandra had spent years trapped in a cycle of fear and control, her life dictated by Francisco's anger. At first, she had believed in his promises, his declarations of love, his assurances that things would get better. But time had only proven otherwise. The bruises, both physical and emotional, had built up over the years until she could no longer ignore them. That morning, she had finally gathered the courage to leave the house without his permission. She had simply walked out the door, her heart pounding in her chest, afraid he would stop her, drag her back, or worse. But she had made it out. She had stepped into the sunlight, inhaled the air of freedom, and realized for the first time in years that she had a choice. Francisco, of course, had not taken it well. Now, in the dimly lit living room of their house, he stood towering over her, his voice a low growl of barely restrained rage. "Where the hell were you, Maria Alejandra?" he spat, gripping her arm tightly. "You think you can just leave without telling me?" She wrenched her arm free, stepping back, her voice steady despite the fear churning inside her. "I don't need your permission, Francisco. I want a divorce." His eyes darkened. "You want a what?" "A divorce," she repeated, her voice firmer now. "I'm done being afraid of you." Francisco's face twisted in fury, and for a moment, she thought he might hit her. But before he could make a move, another voice cut through the tension. "That won't be happening." A man stepped forward from the shadows of the doorway. He was tall, with a hardened look about him, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Maria Alejandra had met him just days ago, Santiago, a man with a troubled past but a sense of justice that couldn't be ignored. She had turned to him when she had nowhere else to go, and despite his own struggles, he had helped her. Francisco sneered. "Who the hell is this?" "I'm the one who's going to make sure she walks out of here without another bruise on her," Santiago replied evenly. Francisco laughed, though there was no humor in it. "You think you can take my wife away from me? She belongs to me." Maria Alejandra squared her shoulders, feeling the weight of years of oppression lift just slightly. "I don't belong to you, Francisco. I never did." Francisco lunged, but Santiago was faster. With one swift motion, he grabbed Francisco's wrist, twisting it behind his back. Francisco howled in pain. "You don't get to hurt her anymore," Santiago said, his voice calm but deadly serious. Francisco struggled but was no match for Santiago's strength. "You think this is over?" he spat. "I'm calling the police. Let's see what they think of you taking my wife." Minutes later, a police officer arrived, his expression neutral as he assessed the situation. "Officer, this man took my wife," Francisco shouted. "He's interfering in our marriage." The officer turned to Maria Alejandra. "Ma'am, is this true?" She took a deep breath, standing taller. "No, I left on my own. I want a divorce. And I need protection from him." The officer studied her, then glanced at Francisco, who was still rubbing his wrist. He had seen this scenario play out too many times. He knew an abuser when he saw one. "We'll be keeping an eye on him," the officer said finally. "If you need a restraining order, we can arrange that." Francisco's face went red with rage, but he knew better than to argue with the law. As the officer led him away, Maria Alejandra felt an unexpected sense of relief wash over her. The nightmare wasn't completely over, but she had taken the first step. She turned to Santiago. "Thank you," she said, her voice sincere. "I don't know what I would have done without you." He shrugged, looking almost embarrassed. "You don't owe me anything." She hesitated, then asked, "Do you have a job?" He looked surprised. "Not exactly. Not one that people would consider respectable." "Would you be my bodyguard?" she asked. Santiago blinked at her, taken aback. "Are you serious? You helped me stand up to him. You taught me to defend myself," she said. "I know you have a past, but I also know you have a good heart. You deserve a chance, too." For the first time, a small smile tugged at the corner of Santiago's lips. "All right, you've got yourself a bodyguard." As Maria Alejandra stepped forward, leaving her past behind, she realized she had done more than just escape Francisco. She had reclaimed her life. And she was never going back.